On this edition of the CBS Video Library of World War II, we'll turn our attention to the Pacific. We'll take up the collapse of the historic Burma Road and meet the men who flew the hump, the Himalaya Mountains, to keep China's lifeline open. We'll recount the story of one great battle on one Pacific island that lasted just 4 days and yet has come to symbolize great heroism and tragic cost, Tarawa. We begin this survey of the Pacific War with a chapter we call Burma Road and the Hump.
Japan's sweep into Burma removes Free China's only effective connection to the outside world. The Burma Road is now cut. A new supply line must be built from Calcutta to Lido near the Assam airfields in India, then by air across Burma's Himalayan hump to Kunming, China. In Calcutta, supplies for the China-Burma-India Theater, the CBI, are piled up after traveling 12,000 dangerous sea miles from America. They pile up far faster than they can be moved, by river barge, by plane, by outmoded and inadequate railways to the fighting fronts. Not even a box of K-rations can be shipped from Calcutta to Assam in the same freight car. 4 different railway gauges exist, and transfer from wide to narrow gauge cars is by hand. To move 24 drums of gas takes 5 hours. Only one electric crane is available for the whole line. Locomotives and rolling stock are depleted. To expedite transfer, trucks are driven from boxcar to boxcar across wooden planking. At the Brahmaputra River, there are no bridges. The cars must be loaded on ferries, and they too are inadequate. After heartbreaking weeks, the freight arrives at airfields in northern India. Here, overworked men and overworked planes strive desperately to start the trickle of supplies flowing to China. In May, the onrushing Japanese capture the key base of Myitkyina in northern Burma. Allied transports must now take a circuitous northern route over the high Himalayas to try and escape the enemy's Zero fighters. These planes across the hump, with their precious cargoes for China, are pioneer covered wagons of the air. They are C-46s and 47s, unarmed, easy prey for Japanese planes on the prowl. Weather is both friend and foe. Clouds offer cover from the enemy, but hide peaks that mount to 24,000 feet. En route, a man passes through the 4 seasons, from tropical heat to blue cold. The average flight takes 5 hours. To the crews, 5 hours is an eternity. Not even the mountains can last forever. To break out of them above the clouds and to drop into the valley of Kunming is a glorious return to earth. Despite the heroic efforts of the hump flyers, supplies arrive slowly. In May 1942, only 80 tons are ferried over. By February 1943, the figure will be up to 3,200 tons. Still too little. Every gas drum here has been brought in by air. The beneficiaries of the hump are Chiang Kai-shek's Chinese troops and General Claire Chennault's 14th Air Force, the Flying Tigers. But the pitifully small supplies that get in are scarcely enough to sustain them. And at the other end of the line, in Calcutta and Karachi, the supplies pile up, rot and rust and wait. The overtaxed sky bridge cannot handle the load. Another way to China must be found. The Japanese must be driven out of Burma. Then, behind our advancing troops, a road must be built. The Lido Road, from Lido in northern India, south nearly 500 miles to link up near Lashio with the old Burma Road, establishing a land line from Calcutta to Kunming and China's capital, Chongqing. In late 1942, it begins. One of the greatest road-building jobs in history, through country that has to be captured from the Japanese, from itself. This is the cruel land where a road must be built, scratched out and hacked out and blasted out through the malarial jungle. In good weather, the rate is 3/4 of a mile a day. December 1942, this sign marks the road start. The Japanese do not like the jungle, but they have learned to live with it and in it. It is a jungle so thick that whole regiments can pass a short distance from each other without detection. British soldiers called Chindits, Scots, West Africans, Indians, and Gurkhas move through the jungle, the spearhead for the road builders. They know the Japanese are there. The Japanese know they are there, but just where, neither knows. February 28, 1943. The Lido Road enters Burma at mile 43.02. Right behind the fighting, the bulldozers push ahead laboriously, working day and night to make as much progress as possible before the monsoon begins. Lido Road 47, 3 miles in nearly 3 months, and now everything bogs down in the monsoonal rain and consuming mud. 47 miles built, 431 miles to go. There are still the dead and the wounded. Even during the rains, the former missionary, now Colonel Gordon Seagrave, the Burma surgeon, operates on Allied soldiers. Seagrave, who retreated from Burma with Stilwell, has returned with his native staff. They are among the real heroes of the battle for the road. Difficulties increase for the hump flyers, but in rain-drenched July, 4,500 tons go over. Still, it is scarcely enough to enable General Chennault's fighters in China to defend the transports around Kunming and the city itself. August 15th, 1943, Lido Road, 50.07. Another 3 miles in 3 months. Traffic, even food convoys, can barely move. Everything slides and skids through the dreadful mud. Life is compounded of it, and of rain and mildew and malaria. When the monsoon finally ends in September, the mud remains and has to be disposed of. Native laborers join with the bulldozers to do the job. It is not until October that work on the road can get into full swing again. March 5th, 1944. British and American forces combine in a daring operation. A glider invasion by the Chindits under British General Charles Wingate deep into Burma behind Japanese lines. American Colonel Philip Cochrane, the Flip Corkin of the comic strip Terry and the Pirates, is the glider chief. He confers with Lord Louis Mountbatten, Supreme Allied Commander-in-Chief, Southeast Asia Command. Then Cochrane gives his glider men the word.
Now, is there anything anybody doesn't know? If there is, let's get it straight now. Okay, now just before I came over here, I had our final meeting with the British ground troops that you're going to take in there tonight. And I talked to the guy that's got the red flare that you know is going to be shot off if there's too much interference with the first few gliders at land. And he tells me that that flare's in an awful deep pocket, and it's going to take somebody an awful lot of fining to get at it. So, if those guys have got that kind of heart, and they got that kind of guts, it's up to us to get them in there so they can do their job and get them in right. Now, tonight, your whole reason for being, your whole existence is going to be jammed up into a couple minutes, and you're just going to balance it there, and it's going to take your character to bring it through. Now, nothing you've ever done before in your life means a thing. Tonight, you're going to find out you've got a soul. Good luck.
At the last minute, a reconnaissance plane reports the field selected is unusable, booby-trapped with logs. An alternate field is chosen called Broadway. Of 67 gliders, only 32 will manage to land at Broadway, most of them disastrously. Jungle Broadway kills 31 men, injures another 30. But even as the wounded are cared for and the dead are buried, a 5,000-foot landing strip is being hacked out. In 5 days, nearly 10,000 men will land here, and the Japanese will soon feel their presence. Early in 1944, following the summit conferences at Quebec and Cairo, Vinegar Joe Stilwell realizes his ambition, returns to Burma to avenge the beating he took. His newly trained Chinese troops, supported by Burmese scouts, now help fight the battle for the road with a drive toward the Japanese strongholds of Mogaung and Myitkyina. Attached to his command are General Frank Merrill's famous Marauders. They march from Lido to infiltrate the Japanese lines on Stilwell's flank. Planes supply the Marauders, the first American ground combat troops in the CBI, as they march 20 miles a day through the tough Naga Hills. Merrill himself sees to it that the rations reach his men. Merrill's goal is Myitkyina, a key air base. Stilwell's is Mogaung, an important ground target. Aroused, the Japanese launch a counterattack south of the Broadway airstrip into India to take the Indian cities of Impel and Kohima, thus severing Allied supply lines to the Assam airfields. Outnumbered British and Indian forces apply scorched earth tactics as they retreat. The Japanese move onto the soil of India, only 8 miles from Impel. Until reinforcements arrive, Lord Mountbatten's forces, British and Indian, fight a brilliant defensive battle. Transport planes help save the day, dropping food and water, ammunition and medical supplies to the embattled, surrounded troops. One British garrison holds out for 13 days on Parachute Hill, but the Japanese have overextended themselves. After 2 bitter months, they began to withdraw their troops from India. Now American and Chinese attacks in North Burma are stepped up. In May 1944, Merrill's men take the Myitkyina airfield. It will be another 78 days before Myitkyina itself, 2 miles away, is captured. Under fire, the Marauders quickly prepare the field for transports. The capture of Myitkyina by Merrill's Marauders is Stilwell's greatest victory. It relieves the pressure over the hump, enables planes to fly an unmolested direct route to Kunming. But the ground route, the Lido Road, 164 miles built in June 1944, 314 to go, still must be finished. It's no longer all jungle. Existing roads from Myitkyina on can be improved, but the big problem is to get a suitable rock base. Gravel is in short supply, and hand-picked stones plus mud have to be used. North of where the Lido and Burma roads will join, the battle to clear away the Japanese continues. Stilwell's Chinese with American officers get the job and perform brilliantly. January 7th, 1945, Lido Road completed. From zero at Lido to the old Burma Road junction. 478 miles has taken 2 years, 23 days to build. Beyond this, 566 miles of Burma Road leading to Kunming. The new overland route will be renamed the Stilwell Road, although General Stilwell has been fired because of his differences with Chiang Kai-shek. The first convoy, led by Engineer Chief General Lewis Pick, rolls off for China. Overhead, transports are now flying 45,000 tons a month to China. Ironically, the air bridge will continue to carry far more tonnage than the Stilwell Road during the remaining half year of war. February 4th, 1945. After a 28-day trip, the first convoy reaches Kunming and receives a glorious, wild reception. The battle for the road is won. The road above and the road across Burma to victory.
Burma was but one of the distant battlegrounds that sprawled across the vast Pacific and Far East theaters of the war. Much of the land-based action in the Pacific was fought on islands, islands which became stepping stones toward Japan. One battle site, remembered for the fierceness of the fighting there, was Tarawa. Helping us tell the story of that bloody campaign are then Colonel David Shoup, the man who commanded the United States Marine Assault Forces, and Kiyoshi Ota, one of only 17 survivors out of the 4,500 Japanese troops who defended the island of Baishio, which was part of the Tarawa Atoll.
November 1943, from all over the Pacific come the ships which make up the newly formed Fifth Fleet. It is the most powerful naval force ever assembled under one flag, and its full power is to be leveled against the Japanese-held islands of the Central Pacific. First objective, Tarawa. But Marine General Holland M. Smith, sharing command of the 5th Amphibious Force with Admiral Richmond Kelly Turner, feels that the fleet will not be enough. He knows that the tides around Tarawa are unpredictable. Low water could trap regular landing craft on the island's treacherous reef. General Smith demands new amphibious tractors, Amtraks, finally meets Admiral Turner's reluctance with an ultimatum: no Amtraks, no operation. Although in scarce supply, the Amtraks are provided. To the veteran Marines of the 2nd Division goes the Tarawa assignment. They already have been through the fire of Guadalcanal. They know about Pacific Islands. The long-awaited thrust of Japan zeroes in on the Japanese-held Gilbert Islands. Objective, seize them for a stepping stone along the island road to Japan. Tarawa and its key island, Baishio, must be captured by landing on these beaches. General Shoup recalls those last hours before Tarawa, codenamed Helen.
The time for the operation and the capture of this island had come. Our training was finished, and we were close by. This particular island of Badio was one in which the 2nd Marine Division was supposed to capture in 1943. It was one of the most heavily defended islands that we had ever been able to imagine. Some of the destroyers who were going to help us with their naval gunfire got inside into the lagoon. Other battleships took positions in varying places to pour their shells upon this island.
D-Day morning, November 20th, 1943. The barrage is temporarily lifted so the carrier-based planes can make their strike. Faulty communications cause a misunderstanding. The planes are late, 20 minutes late. They hit hard, but the Japanese have gained vital time to regroup. The Marines have been promised an obliterated island. 2.5 hours of bombing and shelling, it's felt, will finish Baishio, leave any survivors groggy and demoralized. Kiyoshi Ota was one of those survivors.
日本からの援助は全然ないために
Since we were unable to get any help from Japan, all of us made up our minds that we would fight to the death. I ordered my soldiers not to fire until the landing crafts approached within 200 meters. I thought we wouldn't be able to destroy the great power of the enemy unless we caught them on the beach and destroyed them there at once. Tragically, the unpredictable tide stays low. Many boats become stalled targets on the reef. Only the Amtraks have a decent chance of making it. At 1100, Colonel Shoup lands.
The troops were edging ashore, having difficulty getting to the beach. These Japanese were fanatical. They ran down to the beach and threw hand grenades into the Amtraks. Marines would throw them back. One lad with an arm already off picked up a grenade and threw it back at the Japanese from his amphibian tractor. This was no time for being boys. Men went after men in a manner unheard of in my lifetime.
By noon, not only Colonel Shoup, but Sergeant Ota realizes how close the infighting is getting.
A
group of American soldiers landed quite close to my foxhole.
それで、米軍はその石垣の下に
Under this foxhole, the American soldiers hid themselves, and we could not fire at each other.
お互いに撃てないうちに敵が入ってきたわけです。
I established a command post alongside a blockhouse built by the Japanese. In this blockhouse, there just happened to be 26 live Japanese. They were making plenty of noise and finally threw a hand grenade out of the air vent. It didn't go off. We fixed this for the future, however, by taking boards, wire, and tin, and making ourselves an arrangement whereby if they tried to do this trick again, we would be warned.
"1,500 Marines, many wounded, are now ashore, nailed down under a blazing tropical sun. As mounting casualties stain the water along red beaches 1, 2, and 3, their code names take on an ominous meaning. With the tide still down, no supplies are coming in. Equipment and dead lie strewn on Tarawa's terrible beach with its jutting pier, once the site of Japanese privies. Everything, water, ammunition, plasma, men, is running out. To Marine General Holland M. Smith, a message: need more men.
For us ashore, by this time, with both God and the United States Navy and direct support, there was never any question about us winning the battle. However, there was to be about 76 hours of haggling over the exact price we were to pay for it.
夜、アメリカの兵隊は目が見えないと。
American soldiers, we had been told, could not see in the dark, so we decided to work at night, and Japanese soldiers hid themselves during the daytime and moved through the island when it got dark.
なんとか隠れておって、夜になって。
During this time, the Japanese cut sections from our communication wire, which had cost us lives of Marines to lay. They used this wire to tie themselves in the tops of palm trees, from which the next morning they shot back at the Marines. I had gotten the division commander to assign to me a part of his reserve, another landing team. It's understandable that with the meager information that I could get out to the flagship, that they were quite concerned as to the progress we were making. In fact, whether we were successful or not.
On the morning of D-Day, +1, the division reserve prepares to land. The beach is choked with ruined equipment. It is strangely quiet. The reserves can't possibly know that this apparently abandoned wreckage is alive with Japanese. During the night, they have silently infiltrated these burned-out tanks and half-submerged boats. Navy planes streak to the rescue, but before the snipers are bombed out, the reserves lose more men than any battalion that landed on Tarawa's D-Day. The Marines have been warned that against Japanese bayonets, their only armor is a khaki shirt. They learned the truth of this on Guadalcanal, and now on Baisio they exercise the caution of professionals. At 0852, Colonel Shoup radios, imperative you land ammunition, water, rations, and medical supplies on Beach Red 2 and evacuate casualties. And a little later, situation doesn't look good ashore. Finally, at noon on D-Day +1, a miracle. The tide rises. These men will receive reinforcements. By late afternoon, the 6th Marines make it over the reef for the first landing on Beach Green. As fresh troops help expand the beachheads, Colonel Shoup radios, casualties many, percentage dead not known, combat efficiency, we are winning. The night of D-Day +2, the desperate Japanese have to make a final decision. Banzai. Our commanding officer encouraged us to destroy our enemy. We were told that our lives were in his hands and we shouldn't expect to come out of this alive.
This was really the end of the battle, although we had many more hours battle with small groups to completely take the atoll.
At that time, I really wished that I could die as soon as possible. Then, as it got lighter, American tanks approached my foxhole, and I could hear the Marines whistling. Throughout D-Day +3, the Marines pushed their way down the island. The dug-in Japanese must be literally dug out. Even in defeat and disorder, the Japanese continue to fight viciously as they fall back down the narrow island. Stubbornly, the Marines drive through to the island's tip. Paicio's airstrip, the prize of the island, has fallen. By early afternoon, 475 Japanese have been killed in the 2-mile advance. On D-Day +4, Pacio is secured. Of 4,500 Japanese troops, only 17 survive. With them are 129 Korean laborers. Every Japanese commissioned officer, including the island's commander, Rear Admiral Keiji Shibasaki, has been killed. Master Sergeant Kiyoshi Ota becomes the highest-ranking survivor. Captured in a dugout, which Marines have blasted with grenades and flamethrowers, though wounded, he miraculously lives.
それから間もなく私をダイハツに乗せて
They put me in a small landing craft and took me to a big ship which seemed to be a freighter.
だったと思います。その船のベッドの上におりますと、米軍の
A bed was given to me, and there I saw an American who seemed to be a Catholic or a chaplain.
ような格好をした人が来たのであります。そして私に
He said, "Please do not worry, you and I are good friends. The bad one is not you, but Japan's Tojo."
何か私は胸がこみ上げてきて
I was so impressed with his kindness and was willing to accept his words.
自殺をしようかと私は何回も思って
Before that, I tried to commit suicide several times by cutting my tongue out or hanging myself with the sheet of the bed.
一点で首を吊ろうといろいろ考えましたがその温かい言葉を聞いて
But with his warm sympathies, I made up my mind to be cooperative and go to the prison camp.
米国の捕虜収容所に収容されたのであります。
Reported dead after the battle, Ota returns to Japan at the end of the war to find his own well-tended grave. For the Marines, it is not a war that is over, just a battle. This island, the Japanese declared, could not be taken with 1 million men in 100 years. The Marines have taken it in a little less than 4 days. But island footage is expensive, and in the wreckage of Baishio, over 1,000 Marines and sailors are dead, more than 2,100 wounded. Almost alone, Marine General Holland M. Smith felt that Tarawa was unnecessary. Most agree that there had to be a Tarawa. It was an airstrip, a lesson for the amphibious assaults to come, but most important, it was a beginning in the Central Pacific. For General Shoup, it has special meaning.
At the end of the battle, I also wrote words like this: "The naval gunfire and bombing were the reason for our success. Without naval gunfire, we could not have taken the island. It did not do what we had hoped it would do completely, that is, obliterate it so we could walk ashore without trouble. But it did tear up the communications of the enemy so that he could not get his troops together and give a counterattack us during that first fateful night. The reason this battle was won was that these great American men were determined that their nation would not go down in defeat."